All right, everyone. Welcome to another Downtime podcast live. Thanks for joining us this evening. Thanks to everyone that's been watching these. We've got some lovely messages off people saying they're enjoying them, they're getting into it. So thanks for that. Makes it worthwhile. It means we're going to keep doing it. If you haven't watched the past episodes, there's a few out there now. So there's an episode from last week with Katie Winton, and there's an episode from a couple of weeks ago with Nico Mullally, Elliot Jackson and Dakota Norton. So head over to the YouTube channel and check those out. As ever, keep your questions coming in. Type them in the comments up there. Anything strength, conditioning, fitness, coaching related, anything you want help with, let us know. If there's one thing I can ask of you tonight, if you can think of a friend who would benefit from some training advice, then why not send them a message now, put the link to this live stream in there, and yeah, spread the word, get a few more people on this call. That's the only way that it's going to happen. There's no marketing budget, so yeah, keep on spreading the word. Right, it's time to introduce this week's guest. And first up, we've got Johnny joining us from Fit for Racing. Johnny, how's it going with you?
I'm good, Chris. Very good, thank you.
Good
First
stuff.
time I've been on a YouTube live, so quite excited about this.
Yeah, it just doesn't freak you out then?
Oh, no, we've done so many Zoom calls and all kinds that this is kind of life now. It's all right.
Yeah, I'm used to seeing pixelated faces.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about my language. What are the rules about that?
I don't know. I haven't marked it as a child-friendly stream, so
we'll see.
We're almost past the watershed. We'll see what happens. Cool. All right, next up, we've got Ben Plenger from Strength Factory. Ben, how's it going with you?
Yeah, top banana. Real good, mate.
Excellent. And what about you? Have you done any live stuff before, or is this new to you?
No, also popping my cherry tonight in a three-way with Johnny and Chris.
What better way to spend a Wednesday evening, eh?
Yeah,
People will
what
pay a
else
lot
would
for
I be
that,
doing?
man.
Good stuff. All right. Philip Ryan's joining us. Says he's looking forward to it, so that's all good. All right, we'll kick off with some questions then. And we've had a few come in on social media already, so we'll start with some of those. Well, actually, here's a question that came in that I guess is kind of interesting. I'm a bit fed up of talking about it, but there's some virus thing going on at the moment, apparently. Johnny, we talked a bit on the most recent episode with you about how it was impacting your business, but Ben, what about you? What have you had to change, basically? What's different for you?
Yeah, so I guess I've got two groups of clients, really. I've got my face-to-face clients who come and see me in the gym, who obviously now can't see me in the gym, and I had to move pretty quickly. I basically got them all using an online coaching app called Train Heroic, which is going really well, actually. So they, rather than maybe seeing me once or twice a week, I've actually been putting daily training sessions on there and just changing out the format a bit. So they just do small doses daily, just as more of a health, like mental and physical health sort of focus rather than so performance focused. And then, yeah, similar story with the online guys. I mean, inevitably, you've got some self-employed people, you lose some clients because they just can't afford it. But then most of them are sticking around at the moment, and I'm just trying to do my best to look after them.
Nice one. Good work, man. So what, obviously you've got plenty of clients there. You've got both got some serious athletes that are, big into their racing, as well as your weekend warriors and people that just want to get fitter and stronger. We don't know when we're going to be racing. So what are you doing with your programming for those kind of top athletes that you work with? And like Johnny, we'll start with you on this one.
Well, we've got two levels of program at the moment, and it's Fit for Racing, which for a long time was seen as the elite program. So most of our elite riders, they do follow that, but within it there are scaling options. So we've just extended those options to have more single equipment workouts. So although the program remains the same for those with access in the gym, because it's not just the UK we program for. I think 70% of the guys that follow are from outside of the UK. So there's restriction differences all around the world. Great if you can get into the gym, but on each level, it then becomes a body weight access program. So the Fit for Racing guys, the elite guys, they can do that. And then I guess just advice and communication where possible. I mean, a lot of guys, they rely on training for peace of mind and mental stability because it's something that's in their control, which at the time now, it's very easy to feel unsafe, and people tend to rely then on what they can control. And a lot of these elite riders, they control their training very well and they rely on that. And so, they do a lot and they are really smashing it. Some of them, particularly people with less access outside, they're just hitting it more. And in all honesty, from a coach's perspective, you have to figure out a balance between mental health and how they are, and physicality effects of that training. And I think, well, there's a potential that they could overtrain or under recover, however you want to look at that. There's a potential for that, but at the same time, how would they be if I took it away from them? For the small difference in their physical state versus there may be a huge difference in their mental state. And so I guess the variance between the athletes changes, and a lot of it, depends on what makes them feel the safest, I guess, and in control, which then makes them feel safe.
Yeah, fair play. What about you, Ben? What have you changed with your athletes?
Yeah, so a lot of what Johnny says makes total sense there. And if I think about like my top elite racers who are planning to go to World Cup and World Series and things like that, that not having that goal is really hard to deal with, because they're working so hard full time that it's everything, that determines whether they get a ride next year and stuff like that. And now the thought of training all winter and then that's taken away, it's absolutely savage. I mean, just like anyone whose job is at risk or livelihood is at risk. So what we've done is, with most of them, there was we almost took like a little pause. Normally I would have a mid-season like mental break from training. I'd always try and fit that in. But we've kind of taken that now, like a little spring break, if you like, without going to Cancun. And so basically some had just like a few days, some had a week, and some had a little bit longer, where they just had a bit of space. They stayed active, they still ate well, and they just figured out what was going on, really. And now they're all back to training, but I guess we've kind of like wound the clock back a bit, and they're not maybe doing the training that you might normally expect an athlete to do in April, right at the start of the race season, where you really want them peaking. So they're doing a bit more volume, like super long rides and stuff like that, rather than the really intense stuff. Because I think if I try and keep them like peaking and keep the intensity going, just in case racing starts again, which I don't think it will anytime soon, then I think by the time racing does happen, or if we get a little season in October and November, then I don't think they're going to be ready. So we've just wound the clock back a bit. We're kind of doing January, February style training now, and then when we get some indication of what's happening, we'll ramp it up again.
All right, good answer. Fair play. Right, we've got a couple of questions coming in. The first one is going to challenge my pronunciation. So Ilias Kapadia, sorry if I got that wrong. What would be a good cool down to do after a workout? And that's to both of you. So Ben, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, so if you're on the bike, then, quite often you come to screaming into the car park, heart rate through the roof. Don't just stop then. Ride a few laps, take 10 minutes to keep pedaling, keep moving, to just gradually bring the heart rate down. And then the same applies at the gym. Maybe at the end of the gym session, you do something more intense. It gets the heart rate up. Well, don't just stop dead and walk out the door. Spend 5 minutes on the watt bike, or just slowly on the assault bike, or go for a walk, and just try and bring yourself back down to like a normal rested state where your breathing's under control. So just gradually reduce the intensity of the exercise, focus on breathing, and try and get back to nasal breathing, nice and chill.
All right.
Yeah, I'd second that too. Yeah, walking, if you can't do anything else, walk around until you're just not completely stop dead. If you've done intensity, you might actually end up lying down temporarily, but where possible, stand up, walk around. But I'd like to add on top of that after training is a perfect time for stretching. So focusing on areas that you've identified you might be weak at in your mobility, because that will affect all things training and riding. If you're lacking an area, maybe we've spoken about dorsiflexion before, Chris, and the importance of that for training and riding. If you're no good there, then after training is a perfect time to do that. You probably, because you've scheduled training, you're in a state where you're quite bothered about your physicality, so you're more likely to do it. But there's some evidence, I'm not going to find some papers, but evidence will suggest that stretching after exercise is more effective. At least it was a couple of years ago when I saw that.
All right, here's a good one. Shred Easy. I can pronounce that, which is a good place to be. I've got a question about high intensity and low intensity training. Should I alternate days of low and high intensity training? Anyone want to take that?
I'm happy to say, yeah, I guess it depends what you're doing at the time and where you find there's a deficit. So I'm a massive fan of variance, but if you're a seasonal athlete, then high versus low with medium in the middle, thinking about the longer time you are from an actual race, then steady state zone 2, as in, you know, the very easy cardio based supportive exercise. You can maybe do that on a watt bike, a static bike, or out for a ride. This will help you recover, but also raise your longer term capacity. At the same time, you can build strength, and short domain intensity will support that. So you can do that a long time away from racing and then fill in the middle a little bit more with conditioning workouts, but more sport specific the closer you get. These two things can be very supportive of each other if you get the balance of volume right. But if you're just let's say in a state of general physical preparedness, then variance is great. But I would still consider a focus so that you can see any benefits of a particular training style, because of course people do adapt to things differently as well. So it's difficult for me to say exactly what's right for you without knowing where you're weak and how you adapt to the training that you're doing. So definitely don't neglect any area, but have maybe a focus for 4 to 6 weeks of one area and see how you feel after that. Because you might not know necessarily where your baseline is to compare against, to realize where you might be weak, let's say.
Yeah, okay.
Did that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, so Shred Easy, he was halfway through that. He said, I find my base fitness is poor, but I seem to train a lot in high intensity zone 4 workouts. And then he just said, I think that you've answered his second question, basically.
Cool.
Good work.
Happy days.
All right. Actually, I mean, you mentioned weaknesses. What would be super interesting if people are are watching this live, what do you think is your biggest weakness when it comes to mountain biking? Pop that in the comments, and then we'll see if there's any themes in there, and then maybe we can kind of pick some of those up. Pie, well, yeah, pies. If you've got a pie sponsor, as we were talking about earlier, then you're in trouble.
There's going to be some comedy coming out of here, I suspect.
We'll see what we get. All right, so Jason Miller wants to know, the day after deadlifting, my lower back is a bit sore, not painful though. Is this bad technique or just muscle fatigue?
So, yeah. Do you mind if I grab that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So there's obviously fatigue on your body the day after training. And to a certain extent, yeah, DOMS or soreness is to be expected. However, I'd almost put the lower back on the whole as a bit of an exception to that, where it's such a trigger and flare-up area for so many people that, in my opinion, for most people, you really do want to just avoid that sort of sensation. If you're getting that every time you deadlift the next day, then if you're deadlifting over a prolonged period of time, I'd say there's potential there for things to get worse. And rather than it becoming acute, it becomes chronic. So, yeah, what you've got to look at there is technique. And as part of technique, you know, maybe there's some weak links in the chain that are putting then more load on the lower back. So classic one being your glutes, like your bum muscles, and obviously your core and your stomach. Because when we deadlift, you really want to be lifting with the hips, okay, and then properly braced around the core to protect the lower back. And the lower back obviously is going to do work, okay. The muscles are going to be working, And if you really push on, if you really go for like some big weights, then you can expect to feel it a little the next day. But if every time you lift you're feeling that, then I'd suggest that a bit of coaching, and a good coach is going to help you identify, those weaknesses, I guess, that we're talking about, that are then putting more load on the lower back. And then the other one that's, that I'm experiencing now is that in the last 4 weeks, I've accidentally ended up with a desk job, which I did a little YouTube video about the other day, and a lot of people really related to it, where I've gone from walking like 15,000 steps a day on the gym floor coaching to sitting down loads at this very table, and I can feel my back every day, and I did some kettlebell swings yesterday, and I was like, oh, my back didn't feel great. And so, maybe this person, I can't remember his name, needs to just maybe look after himself a bit better with mobility and things like that around the hip area in particular, and that may help as well.
Can I add to this as well?
Yeah.
It's a very relevant thing, and you see it a lot. So I guess my stance on it is that mobile hips, for sure, and a good amount of bracing through the midline is required for good deadlifting. So when we're looking at movement first, obviously in-person coaching is pretty much the only way that you can see that it's working. And even then, you're not in the person's body, so you can't tell where's tight and where's not. So the importance is getting the movement nailed down first. And the pain, if it's pain, he says not painful. He's got, what was the words there, Chris? Was it fatigue, or was it, I think he said it wasn't painful.
Yeah, not painful.
Yeah, so I guess what I'd say on that, if it's sore, not painful, then if you look at it as a deadlift is not an extension of the lower back, for sure. Ben's mentioned that. But it is an isometric hold of your midline with a weight that is massive. So if you say it did an isometric hold on your front, say an L sit, so hang, or L hang, so hang from and put your legs out straight. It's basically that on your front. And you would probably expect that if you did enough of that or added weight and supported, that you would feel some pain or this description on the front the day after, and potentially the day after that too. So I would say that it's not necessarily a bad thing, and don't let it put you off unless there's change. So look out primarily for any worsening of that. If in the meantime that does happen and it's gradually getting worse, if in the meantime you can't resolve it with more mobility through your hips, because it might be a positional thing, or mechanical because you're sitting down or whatever, then start definitely thinking about taking a break from deadlifts or lightening the load, getting some in-person coaching and doing some supplementary movement and stability work through your midline. So particularly isometric holds, side planks, bird dogs. We love them as coaches because they're so beneficial at bracing, which is going to be the primary role of your midline, your trunk, is to stop any kind of movement through the spine. Because ultimately, as riders, yeah, we want to be super safe, but we don't necessarily want bad movement that'll then reflect on bad performance on the bike. So if we're relying on our back to do all of that work, then we're missing out on the benefits of glutes and hamstrings, which are going to be way better for performance, but also for safety.
All right, good answers, very comprehensive. Someone called Jack Redding, I think Johnny, you definitely know him.
Oh, yeah, tell him to piss off. Jack's stalking me at the moment.
He's got some big questions here. So regarding intensity workouts, what's your advice when it comes to going into anaerobic mode and experiencing lactic burn in your muscles and lungs? Personally, I find this has a negative, and then it's so long that it's come up later, negative impact straight after, and usually into the following day as well, typically with a cough, usually for 24 hours. Would you recommend staying just under lactic threshold during these workouts? Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, can I pass that one to Ben?
So he's saying that after doing really high intensity intervals, then above lactate threshold, that he develops like a cough. Then is that essentially it, and is detrimental
Yeah.
to this following day performance.
Yeah.
I think, so we're not going to sit back and sit on information that I think I can probably elaborate on his question. That I think he has mentioned it in the past where maybe he feels like a loosening of the lungs, and he feels like that's lactic in his lungs because of like super high. I've seen Jack, and he can go like he's in the 99.9 percentile of, or 0.01 percentile of people that can hit intensity. And you know the difference yourself when you mentally commit to it. Then the impact's going to be bigger. But what he says is that I guess it gets into his lungs, and he gets that cough that you only get from doing that kind of intensity. So anyway, I was just wanting to say that. I did know a bit of the background, and
I think that I mean, you certainly, to experience what he's saying there, you certainly need to be very self-motivated to push yourself that hard, and most people can't, to be honest. Like when I think, because it's a feeling that I have experienced where you go so hard that you literally feel you're going to you can taste blood in your mouth from your lungs and things like that. And I think that's probably what he's getting at. Something, I mostly would only experience when I'm racing, and before that probably in the army, to be honest. So these days I'm getting soft. I don't go that hard anymore most of the time. So, I think that's where programming comes in, and saying, two-way conversation with a coach or just with yourself, if you're programming your own stuff and you experience this and feel your performance drop off the next day, or these symptoms, is then right, well, I need to be really really sparing maybe with these efforts, because this particular athlete can go so hard that actually there's real potential to make some really good gains there from someone who can go that hard. But you just can't go that hard all the time, especially if they're experiencing this with their lungs. And after high intensity interval training, like really high intensity, for about 24 hours afterwards, you're at greater risk of getting a cold and stuff like that, which at the moment is definitely bad news. So that's one of the classic things where pro athletes think more like cycling and cross country. You race on the Sunday, and then Sunday night you're on a plane, and because you've just worked your lungs, you've gone absolutely max out, you're at lots greater risk of picking up like a cold or some sort of throat infection, and then you're getting on a plane, so it's bad news. Bit of a side note. But
all right, fair play. I hope that helps you, Jack. All right, here's a good question from Emma Bertels. She says, I'm worried about losing my fitness I've gained for enduro racing. I've been going to the gym loads, doing a structured training plan with weights and a watt bike, and I've got nothing at home. What do I do?
Johnny, we'll both promise not to just try and sell our stuff. just sign up. No. Sign up to mine.
No, mine. No, Ben's there. No. Yeah, well,
go on then, mate. You take this one.
Yeah, I guess I'll put a little thing out there. So for me, this is really good because we're together as coaches, and we're here to help people that might not have any other available funds for programming, coaches or places that they feel they can come to advice. So firstly, I appreciate that this question has happened on here, because obviously it reflects the trust that she puts into us. And I don't want to undermine that at all by upselling any kind of program. There is lots out there free on the internet about home workouts for conditioning. So the fitness that you talk about is probably a fitness that relates to being bike ready. So you feel like when you come out of this and you get back on your bike, you might not be as prime as you were when it left. So if you've got no equipment whatsoever, hopefully still you can get out for exercise. Even if you don't have a bike, running is going to keep that cardio base up. You can do some intervals. As Ben said, be careful about the intensity of that. And then focus on good movement and spending time in positions, a little bit like yoga, flowing yoga, and spend time on your weaker areas. Because in all honesty, it might be that focusing a little bit more on mobility and core strength might really drastically improve your riding, because you've never done that before. And so when you reintroduce the fitness, because you're able to, then that'll pick up reasonably quickly, because it sounds like you're well trained anyway, and you're worried that you're going to lose that. Don't panic so much. You can do a maintenance amount of resistance training with body weight only, but it is still a fantastic place to be able to identify areas that you haven't maybe once focused on, get better at those, and then on the other side, there's a potential that you could be in a better place than when you left.
Yeah, I'd agree totally. Generally, doesn't take a huge amount of work. You know, you can maintain a really good level of strength by training once per week, for instance. Now, obviously, that's difficult at the moment with body weight, but like Johnny said, there's loads of stuff out there. Similarly, you know, if you lose a little bit of that top end on bike fitness at the moment, which most people will, unless you can really train it hard at home, then it's not the end of the world, because you're not going to come straight out of lockdown straight back to racing. There's going to be that halfway period where you can get that sharpness back again. So well, Johnny covered it really. Work on those weaknesses.
All right, good stuff. Here's one that I've definitely suffered with this. David Heffender wants to know. He says he's doing 5 days a week of training, and sometimes maybe once a month after a really hard session. It looks like he's using your program, Johnny, or a super long weekend ride.
Stop there.
Yeah, his legs fall off. No. He has trouble sleeping due to super hot muscles, so he's just rolling around and waking up super exhausted. What can he do to change that? Any thoughts from anyone?
Go on Ben's program. Sorry, breaking the rules. Do you want this one, Ben? You happy?
So yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a tricky one. I guess I'd look at training a different time of day. You know, maybe see if you can train earlier in the day, so you got more time between training and then bedtime. Have a think about maybe using like some breathing techniques to just shift your state from being like a pumped up, fight or flight, agitated, I'm going to lift up heavy shit kind of state to a more of a hippie, nice and chilled out. So just some nasal breathing into your belly. There's about 1,000 different things on YouTube you can follow. Just go and listen to some whale music, do some breathing. It sounds like what he's describing is also very physical as well. And I'm a pretty big believer in general in, a cold shower. But this sounds like a really great time to have a cold shower if he's burning up. And then another another reason that people maybe don't sleep well after training is if they're really carbohydrate depleted. So, people are talking fat loss, are like, oh, no carbs after 5, Well, yeah, that's one technique that may help someone lose fat, but actually carbs are really great for helping you fall asleep in the evening. So if maybe this guy, Hasselhoff, what his name was, is training after dinner and then maybe just having a protein shake, he might be really glycogen, like carbohydrate depleted, which can then really affect your ability to fall asleep. So I would say add some carbohydrate to your post-training shake, see if that helps, or just try and get a bit more carbs in dinner. Because sometimes being carb depleted can negatively affect sleep.
Anyone got any thoughts on magnesium for sleep?
Yeah, it's good. I don't know the ins and outs of exactly how it works, and I don't use it myself, but I've certainly read in enough places, and I know that magnesium features heavily in a lot of relaxation type supplements. So, yeah.
Nootropics are a thing big at the moment. So put a bit of that in for sleep. I think I tried one for a little while called Unplugged. And in all honesty, I think it was a placebo, and which makes me believe more in that it's within your control. But if you know that, it's more difficult. So your mental state, and certainly reiterate what Ben said, that you're in that fight or flight mode, particularly with the high intensity or heavy work, then there's a lot going on that might be difficult to come down from. And then you're talking about nutrition as well. It's best that if you're having this issue often, to really change the time that you train and have a look at your nutrition around it. So stick to a nutrition strategy you know is correct. So it's higher carbs after training, and then even again in the meal after that. So carbs around training are great. But at the same time, if you have carbohydrate, it depends what time, if you're hot before you go to sleep and you struggle to go to sleep, but then you sleep well, it may be that if you have a big meal before sleeping, then that is going to raise your body temperature. And that's actually the reason for it. So again, change those things until you've nailed down what it is, instead of continuing to do it, the same routine. Change a single element, see if it's made an effect. Change another one. If there's no effect, then take some nootropics. Hopefully you'll believe in it, and then the placebo effect will send you off to sleep.
Excellent, good answers. All right, here's one from Fergal Power. Concerned, I guess, as a lot of people are, not having equipment. So is jump rope a good substitute for assault bike or rower, or what else would you guys suggest? A few people have asked similar, I think.
I think a jump rope's good if it's the only thing you have. As with a lot of things at the moment, a heavy book is better than not picking anything up, potentially. But I wouldn't ever recommend a heavy book. If you do have a jump rope and that's the only thing you can do, then I would practice until you get double unders. 1 jump and 2 skips. If you focus on it, you can get those reasonably quick, and it does raise the intensity to something a little bit more akin to a 400-meter run. But for the super high intensity stuff, if that's what you're getting at, then there's no real substitute for assault bikes or hill sprints or that real tough stuff. You can't really do that with a jump rope.
Yeah, it's just a different tool for a different job, and yeah, it can get you out of breath. And yeah, like Johnny said, double under, and you can get full Rocky on it and stuff like that. So maybe to sell the idea of the jump rope, obviously it's nice and cheap and small, which is good, but then also the great thing about doing a bit of skipping is also just the positive effect for a mountain biker on that kind of mixture of stiffness and sort of elastic springiness in the foot, ankle and calf, which is just really positive, I think, for your ability to ride over rough terrain. If you think of your, the bike's obviously got suspension, and then your suspension is your legs effectively underneath you and your arms. But the first part, if you like, the down to the sag, up to the sag point is your ankles, and then the next bit that works is your knees. And so that first bit wants to be nice and supple, just like your forks, but not supple, blow through the travel. You need that stiffness that you get from something like skipping or plyometric work as well. So skipping is great for a warm-up, it's great in its own right, but it's definitely not a assault bike.
All right, here's another kind of alternative-based one from Shred Easy. What's the opinion on using running as training? It says, I find running is probably one of the best things to get my heart rate up, and I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, so normally my default answer to a mountain biker outside of lockdown is, do you currently already run? And when you run, do you pick up injuries and niggles? The answer for most mountain bikers is no, I don't normally run. And the answer for the average runner is that something like 25% of runners get injured more than once a year. Like, the injury rate is through the roof. And so for me, running for someone who doesn't run, if you're just going to start again, is kind of high risk in a way that you're going to pick up an injury unless you are really smart and you really rein it back. And even if you think you're a bit handy on the bike and handy in the gym, if you haven't run for years, then swallow your pride and just start with like a walk jog, and don't just try and go out and smash out your 5k, because your body's going to let you know about it, especially if you're just pounding on the pavement on tarmac as well. So yes, while we're limited on our mountain biking, and maybe you don't want to be out you don't have a road bike, then yeah, running is probably the best and the only way that you can maintain that aerobic and anaerobic fitness that's going to help you get back on the bike, as long as you can do it injury free. The key points to that are to build up gradually. I encourage people when they run to take the headphones out so you can hear your feet on the tarmac, because they should be nearly silent. Okay, whereas most people, and I did a video about this the other day as well, I call them road slappers. Okay, don't be a road slapper, because the harder you slap in the road, the harder the road's going through all your joints, like your knees and everything, and that's going to lead to problems.
Good answer, mate.
Yeah, off-road running is quite good. If you have the choice. I mean, obviously these times, a lot of people live in towns and cities where that's not easily accessible. Don't drive and go somewhere because of this advice. But if you can access off-road running, that is a little bit better. But
yeah,
if you don't have access to anything at all, running can historically cause you injury. Don't necessarily be fully put off. You can integrate things between, so the distance of the run is less. So if you did 4 times 400 meters, then you're only going to be running a mile. If you did a 5K, then obviously that's like 3 miles, and it's continuous. So you don't take any breaks in that. And so that, what I find is that when you're running continuously, you're more likely to get those niggles and injuries that Ben's saying. And absolutely, yeah, so many runners get these injuries because of the nature of it. So instead, maybe consider doing a 400-meter run and then a particular movement. If you're outside, that can be squats, lunges, if you're brave to put your hands on the floor, press-ups, that type of thing. And then you can integrate the run to raise your heart rate amongst other good movements that will help you. Because if that's your only training for that day, I'd like to see more of a movement-based element to it than simply running. Because you could be super fit, but then not necessarily capable or healthy through your hips and the rest of your body, that will then reflect on your riding and overall health.
All right, good stuff. We've got one that came in on social media. This is from Jake Yakavetta. He says, how should I recover from workouts and riding 3 days a week while also working a physical job 5 days a week? I think that's definitely something that a lot of people struggle with, right? They've got a busy, hectic job that's physically draining, and they're trying to train. Like, how do you balance the two?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough one with the physical job, because, the physical job is almost like training in a way, isn't it? I mean, not necessarily constructively, but with the amount it's going to take out of you. So first one, assuming that you're not like putting on body fat and stuff already, is make sure you're getting enough calories. Sounds like Jake here is probably smashing through the calories. And, if you're tired all the time and achy and sore, then, try and increase the protein and increase the total calories and see how you go. Obviously, if you start putting on body fat, then you've gone too far. And then, I mean, the basics of the fundamentals, of recovery remain the same no matter what job you do in a way. It's just that sleep is always king. How much sleep is he getting? Is it good quality? Can he start going to bed half an hour earlier every night, and then you rack up Monday to Friday an extra 2.5 hours of sleep? Is he staying hydrated through the day, especially coming into summer now? If he's like working outside doing a physical job, is he keeping hydrated, or is he completely dehydrated by lunchtime, has a big drink, dehydrated by tea time at the end of work? All these things add up basically. And then at the end of the day, if you're doing all of that right, you're getting the sleep, you're getting the calories, you're staying hydrated, you're doing maybe some foam rolling or some stretching or some breathing or something like that, and you're still experiencing this fatigue, then what I'd look at then is, because you probably can't change your work, is obviously the training like volume. So you can keep it intense, but maybe start looking at dropping some sets and things like that in the gym, and also in your intervals and things like that. So you're still getting the intensity, you're still lifting the heavy weights to get strong, but you then just reduce the total amount of work you do. And then generally on a training program, you're going to have something along the lines of 3 weeks of progressive like work, followed by maybe a recovery week or regeneration week or whatever you want to call it. And maybe for someone in this circumstances, especially if he's getting older, it doesn't say his age, you might want to go to a 2 on 1 off or something like that instead of 3 on 1 off, and just change up the structure in your training like that, and see if that makes it more sustainable. And you may find that by backing off a bit, your fitness and performance actually improves.
Nice one. All right, good stuff. Okay, David also says here, speaking of calories, what would you guys suggest as a snack in the evening? I usually crave sugar and have some raisins and nuts, and some's in inverted commas. Anything else?
Yeah, add some protein in there for sure. If you're snacking in the evening, often you turn towards sugar because you're tired. So if that's the case, don't force yourself to stay awake. As Ben said, sleep's amazing for recovery. Get to bed earlier. Curb your craving by avoiding it completely. It depends what other food you've had through the day when you've trained, but I would suggest that adding protein in there along with fat and taking out some of the sugar, particularly the raisins, so dried fruit, it's going to be high in sugar. That's not going to be very good for you. But that craving is probably also a reflection on your blood sugar stability, which has probably been worsened by the food that you've consistently eaten over the last few weeks. So maybe looking a holistic look at your diet, through the day, doesn't necessarily mean immediate effects, but it will in the future, definitely, if you do it well, curb cravings for sugar in the evening and the rest of the day. So imagine you're taking on sugar first thing in the morning, then you're already starting a spiking effect. So look at more slow release carbohydrates. Even consider, I've been doing a little bit of intermittent fasting and lower carbohydrate meals on times when I'm not training. And I find that my cravings are a lot less. This is only speaking by personal experience, because this is what I'm doing at the moment. But the science is there about sugar levels in your blood. And if you can be more fat adapted, if you want to put a name to it, it's basically just not relying on this hunger and craving effect. If you can get more of your calories daily from the other two macronutrients, so proteins and fats, that will stabilize your sugar a little bit more. And then over time, it might take 3 or 4 weeks. It might be more difficult in the meantime, but on the other side, you will certainly be in a better place for cravings, but certainly health as well. So there are detrimental effects of sugar spikes and instability around that. And diabetes, so many people are diabetic nowadays because of lifestyle choices and nutrition. And a lot of that is education and then bad habits. So, make a conscious effort to look at your diet holistically. And in the meantime, boil a couple of eggs and have a handful of nuts, and try and avoid the fruit and sugary snacks.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
Advice. Go on, Ben.
One quick, I won't go on. Top tip for avoiding snacking after dinner in the evening, especially if you're trying to lose body fat, is once you finish dinner, brush your teeth straight away. And then you won't want to, then you're like, brush my teeth, I can't have any raisins, because they won't taste good because you'll be all minty. So there you go, top tip.
I like it. We're getting advanced now.
Good.
Yeah. All right, we got a good one here that came in on social from Steph Boyle. So she's asking, or it could be a he, I suppose, he or she is asking how to try and build and maintain strength without weights, which is the position a lot of us are in right now.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, the fundamentals are the same. So you've got to apply progressive overload. So over a period of time, you increase the load on your body. And so you just need to be smart about how you load your body. So we can't pick up something heavy. So a great way to get strong is to do things on single arm and single leg. There's not many better expressions of single leg strength than a deep like pistol or single leg squat. Not that, maybe this person can already do that, in which case, you need to start loading it and getting really advanced, in which case they probably wouldn't have texted in. But so a good way to think about bodyweight training and getting stronger is it's easy to think that bodyweight is all like just easy exercises that you then just do more and more reps of. But actually, if we're smart, then you use the position of your and levers effectively to put yourself at a disadvantage. So, with a press up, I can have my hands like that. Doesn't work very well on my webcam, but you can have your hands like under your armpits, basically, where they would normally be for a press up. And after a period of time, you're not getting any stronger. You're just getting better at doing press ups. So, a great way to get stronger is you move the hands lower down the body, and so now they're sort of halfway down your ribs, and now you do your press ups, and they're a lot more demanding, and maybe you can only do half or a third as many as you could before. And so we're using body position and leverage to create a strength stimulus rather than just more reps, which is how a lot of people treat body weight training. And if you apply that to all parts of your training, you should be able to get really strong. I mean, who are some of the strongest dudes and women at the Olympics? Gymnasts. They don't ever really lift any weights, pretty much. They do it all body weight, and they're in mad good shape as well. They look good on the beach. They do.
Johnny, anything to add to that one?
Yeah. As Ben said, often the default with body weight is just add more reps, but you can be inventive with positions, and lots of free content. I'll say that lots of free content out there.
Don't sorry, mate. Don't Google like getting inventive with different positions. You'll get something different. Like.
Hey, that might save some people right now.
Yeah.
Difficult times, man. You don't want to be stuck in the same routine. Spice things up. Bit of excitement. Anyway,
sorry.
Yeah, no, don't apologise. It's good crack. So be inventive, like pike press ups. So putting your feet on something to raise. So you're basically looking to either manipulate your body into a more difficult position using leverage, or, as Ben said, single arm and single leg, because you only need, say, a pistol squat. The majority of people out there will only need their body weight to get really good response from that. And even if you would benefit from more weight, it wouldn't take so much more weight to be able to do it. If you look at a single leg deadlift, you probably going to be looking at a 24 kilo kettlebell maximum to do sets of 10 to 12 to gain some good strength in the glutes and hamstrings, as opposed to a full deadlift where that same 24 kilo kettlebell by a different athlete could be, up to 150, 160 kilos. The difference is massive when you just swap onto one leg. So do more of that type of movement than higher volume squats. And definitely think about also reducing the rest or the recovery time and increasing time under tension. So that'll help, I suppose, avoid muscle atrophy in a way, because if you look at bodybuilders, they try and increase that time under tension to get more stimulus through the muscle. It's really ineffective for sports performance. But what's your goal really is to maintain the muscle that you've built and maintain an amount of strength, so that then when you back in the gym and you're able to add to that, you're in a better position. Then that more bodybuilder style time under tension is completely a valid way to train right now.
All right, good. Here's one then. So this is from FlynnRider01 on Instagram. Do you have one or more must-do exercise to include in your daily workout? So let's assume you can't say it depends and you don't know anything about the individual.
Oh, I like this.
And
do you mean on lockdown or in general where I've got all the toys at the gym?
Okay, well let's do both, right? Let's do both.
Two answers on the spot.
Go on, Ben. You can do it.
All right then.
So this is one exercise for every single day. Is that the question? So one exercise for every training session.
What's like the one exercise you think everyone should be doing, basically, I guess?
All right then. Yeah, there's a million, obviously, and I'm not. I want to say it depends. I'm not going to. Okay, go on then. I'll give you one answer then that actually is for lockdown and the gym, and that is horizontal rowing. So not on the rowing machine. I mean, where you would lie on your back underneath the bar in a squat rack or under a suspension trainer or a set of rings, and row your body. So pull yourself, upwards. most people are weak in their mid and upper back, and it's going to strengthen your grip. It's going to help improve your posture, helping to undo all that like desk and phone posture that everyone's got. And yeah, I could have said a leg exercise, but I'm assuming they're a mountain biker, so they can just do more pedaling or something to do that. So I'm going to go with a horizontal row. Do more rows. If in doubt, do more rows.
All right. Come on then, Johnny. What about you?
I just like to say that, that was good, Ben, because, mountain bikers, they may already be doing a lot of leg stuff, and it's a much neglected area that does make a massive impact on your riding. So, upper mid-back particularly. I've been thinking that whole time whilst you've been talking and come up with nothing. It's so hard because it's like, squats, but if they struggle with mobility, then lunges. But would that be my favorite all-time exercise, or just one that I could say that everyone should do? I would probably say lunges. But if it was an exercise that I was to prescribe to everybody and the only exercise, I'd probably say lunges, because of the range that you can get and the risk-free nature of it with the benefits. It kind of ticks all of the lower body. Oh no, a lunge with holding a weight over your head. No. But for me, it will probably be a lunge, just to tick those boxes. But as coaches, me and Ben will tell you, it's very difficult. And there's always a but if.
Yeah, there's a lot of it depends. But that's fair because everyone is different. But all right. Another good question from Jack Redden here. This one's for Ben.
Oh, no!
So Miles James used to ride for Jack's team, and he didn't have a coach at the time, and his fitness was hindering him. But he's obviously a great rider. What are the main things that you've been working with him to improve on? So I guess Miles is working with you, Ben.
Yeah, he is. That feels a little weird because that's not coming from Miles. Like, for me to talk about his training like that. But basically, Miles is a fucking sick rider and really self-motivated and really great to work with. And he's made loads of good progress and is doing really well. Like, I'm not really going to talk about the ins and outs because I've not spoken to Miles before this, so sorry, Jack.
No, that's fair. That's totally fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think then it's just a case of these younger riders need some guidance and some support and some help on that side of things? Because with the best way in the world,
sure.
You can go down a rabbit hole on the internet trying to work out what to do, right?
You need that, and also time. There's the odd like total genetic freak who ends up playing international rugby when they're 19 or whatever. But for most people, even those who end up being elite level mountain bikers, you're still physically developing into your early 20s. It's why in cycling you don't have you have under 18s for some stuff, but like most of cycling is under 23 because they understand how long it takes to really develop. And actually, a good motivated rider going through good coaching, a good plan, every year gets a bit fitter and stronger. So hopefully I'm doing a good job with Miles. I like working with him. Part of it is just, building year on year. And hopefully I'll work with him next year and we can build on this year.
Nice one. All right, good. Well, we're getting pretty close to the end, but if people have got a couple more questions left, then stick them in the live chat, which is over there. Do that now. But let's take a question here. There's a good one from Palomo Josem on Instagram. Is it possible to build endurance through riding while keeping it fun?
I don't know about you, but I enjoy any kind of riding. So, I guess, it's a tough one because it's context, isn't it? It depends what he classes as fun. And it depends also, what I'm going to presume is that fun is more downhill. And by doing a downhill section, it then wipes you out temporarily, or you have to get uphill or have a break for an uplift or whatever. So the more fun means the more gaps between higher intensity. And so I'm going to kind of guess that he's at. But I mean, enduro riders, they're at it a lot. You know, having a variance in the intensity. So if we were saying it was a fun training ride, maybe reducing the intensity of the downhill ever so slightly, so that then you're able to carry on riding straight after and continue that flow rather than taking a full rest, then that could be good, because it's a varying amount of like a zone training, I guess. And you could see it as a zone 2, so low intensity with spikes in between, but not a full rest, if that kind of makes sense. So you could have the fun intensity sections in amongst some capacity building work, and it still be a fun ride.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's your take on it, Ben?
Yeah, so yeah, obviously what is fun, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? So you know, maybe this person's got a road bike and they get bored after an hour. You know, how can you make it more fun and engaging for the athlete that you're coaching? And it's like, well, you know, there's so many different ways to find out new routes and things like that for road and off-road riding. So riding new places is always good, rather than that same old stale loop. Riding with new people as well, which you can't do at the moment. Stay safe, kids. And also, you know, go on a little adventure or something, you know, rather than, oh, I'm just going to go for an hour from my house. Maybe you hop on a train and ride home or something. You know, I'm just trying to think of different ways to make your classic endurance training a little more fun, because obviously, yeah, what Johnny said as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Never thought about that, spicing it up a bit, and yeah, just going different places. So
yeah, like just don't fall asleep on the train and end up with a 300-mile ride home.
Yeah, that would be a bit much. All right, we got a question here from Philip Ryan. This is a good one. Do you guys think the lockdown could shake up riders' results in both enduro and downhill because of the change to the fitness training regime, and also because the lockdowns have been different in different countries, right?
Yeah, I just before this had a call with Dee Tidwell from MTB Endurance and Todd Schumlich from Perform-X, and on that Zoom call there was 40 athletes from between us all, and it was funny seeing the three coaches talking and a lot of the reactions from the riders, but it was I suppose a hypothetical, right? We're going to be racing on the 1st of September. What do we do between now and then? And there's an expectation that it's going to be round about then, that there's going to be some kind of racing. But between all of the athletes, the majority of them are in the same boat. Some of them are still able to ride, but responsibly. So the intensity isn't as high. They're trying not to pick up injuries, so that then they have to go to a hospital, basically. Back in the same position, and that's then set the standard. But a couple of riders that have had it really good, and they're going to do a little bit better than they did last season. There's going to be level guys that haven't had access to riding, good trails or downhill sections, whatever. They might drop a few places on general, but I honestly think that across the board, it's going to be pretty similar performance-wise. Inside of it, there's, athletes out there have no equipment whatsoever and they're stuck at home in a flat, and others have a full home gym and they're able to do full training. It's going to have an effect, but I think the biggest effect is the amount of riding that they get and the amount of practice, and the strategy coming out of it will affect that massively. How much they commit to the practice before the race, depending on. Is always secondary, and it's supportive. So what we want to do as coaches is eliminate that physical aspect so that they can shine, because they're in a skills-based sport, particularly for down. Obviously, there's but those skills won't necessarily fade as quickly as their fitness might, and they'll be getting that fitness back so that they're not incapable. Incapable riders, just maybe a little shuffling around here and there. But I wouldn't be surprised if it hasn't made a massive amount of difference on the positions on those riders.
Okay. What about you, Ben? Have you got any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, the guys winning, like the World Cups and the EWS and stuff like that, they're not only the best riders and possibly some of the fittest and strongest, but they've got the best head game as well. You know, they're up there for a reason. And I think that that's going to show, because if you've got a strong enough head game through all of this, then it doesn't matter what you've got at home. As long as you can physically ride a bike, then they're all those top riders, male or female, they're all going to turn physically well prepared. And then it's just going to be down to who gets back up to race speed the quickest. Maybe some of them will have a small advantage because they could ride gnarlier stuff for an extra 2 weeks at home. But, well, it's like riding a bike, isn't it? You don't forget. And I do think that those top guys, they are a class act, and they'll just switch it back on. And I think that if we do get any racing this year, like international racing, it'll just be business as usual. It'll be the Frenchies at top. I think probably, yeah. Well, let's not get into whole predictions. That's a whole other show. You do that with Nico, not us.
Fair play. All right, let's do one.
Yeah, I think the head game. Sorry.
No, go on, Johnny. It's all good.
The head game is that because very unpredictable, condensed amount of time for preparation. That then I need to make up what I've lost. But with most people being in the same boat, get a strategy for blasting too hard and fatigue above it. Urgency, it works for some people, but it's going to create a lot of tension, which you don't really want to reflect on your riding, and that's when the experience comes in. So older riders will start coming through a little bit more because they're able to deal with adversity better. They've been in it and they know themselves, and they're quite quietly confident about their performance. And maybe some of the more nervous younger riders that maybe see to get a ride for next year will create a lot of tension. So it's definitely something to watch out for a rider, to really get a strategy around your head game and what you're going to do about this nervous tension that you might feel on the other side. Condensed amount of time.
Yeah. Fair play. Good stuff. All right, we're going to do one last question, and this one's from me, and it's going to have to go to Ben because we've got some audio trouble coming from Johnny's side, I think. I'm not sure why, but it might be internet connection related. But it is late in the day. Maybe your internet's had enough up there in the Lake District. So obviously riding, it requires a lot of fast processing, quick reactions, and unfortunately sitting around Netflix kind of chilling at home doesn't really stimulate that side of things. So any thoughts on how you can keep not only your kind of physical fitness up, but how you can keep some of that, that impulse, that reaction, that fast processing?
Yeah, so this is a bit of a tricky one, really, because, and I think it really divides opinion. So you could say you do things like, I don't know, like juggling and stuff. Like you see all the stuff like Nino Schurter does and things like that. But I'm just not sure how transferable that stuff is, to be honest. And I think that ability to react quickly to, things on the trail and things like that are coming up is down to your inherent skill set and is something that you can't force and isn't going to be there on the first ride back, or you will end up in A&E if you try and push it. I don't want to be negative about it, but I think that we need to be realistic, and maybe you can play like computer games or something, like a driving game, maybe keep the reactions sharp, but I'm not convinced. Like you can keep some bike skills on some chilled out trails or some track stand challenge and stuff, but as for those reactions, I think that we just need to be realistic and accept that the first few proper rides back after all of this need to be a bit toned down, and then just let the speed come naturally is the advice that I would give, that I will be giving to both my like elite athletes as well as everyone else. And I think that's just a healthy way to get back on the bike, that's then going to let you find that speed without just drilling yourself into a tree on day one because you're overexcited.
Yeah, fair play. I think Johnny might have done a quick reboot, so let's see if that's working. Any thoughts, Johnny? Did you get the question?
You guys, can you hear me okay?
I can hear bits of what you're saying, but not all of it, unfortunately.
Earbuds anywhere.
Not to worry, mate. Not to worry. We'll get you back on at some point, and we'll cover that in a bit more detail then. Sorry, dude. All right. Well, we should wrap up for the evening. But massive thank you to Ben and Johnny for giving up their time this evening and helping you out with all your questions. Thanks for bringing in some awesome questions as ever, and giving us plenty to talk about. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. There's plenty more of these coming. If you've learned something from it and you think that other people that you ride with and your friends would benefit, then let them know. Please, spreading the word massively helps. That's it for now. Hopefully we'll be back in the next week or two with another one. But take care, look after yourselves, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.